ref. That's he got the ball.
Yes, everybody, welcome back to the Irish Hotspur. Jack and Dave here, and we're going to be talking about one of our favorite subjects, which has to do with the Don Paratici, and will he stay or will he go? We're getting very conflicting reports at this moment in time when it comes to the ITKs of our Spurs universe, when it comes to Paratici's future. Matt Law at the Daily Telegraph has just broken news about 15 minutes before we started recording here, saying Spurs have not held talks with Fabio Paratici over returning to a full-time position at the club once his worldwide ban ends. But also yesterday, from Football Italia, Tottenham chairman Daniel Levy is expected to make a last-ditch attempt with a big money offer to convince Fabio Paratici to return to Spurs. Paratici has reportedly snubbed a return to Spurs to join AC Milan. Dave as well tweeted, by the way, please follow us on Twitter because we're trying to be a bit more active there. But Dave did also tweet, I think, a link from, I believe it was Team Talk, one of the football aggregators as well, have said that Paratici is planning on making a return back to Spurs after his ban is over. And then last, this is one of those sort of Italian journalists and ITKs saying in today's meeting with the owners of Tottenham, Daniel Levy, Fabio Paratici received a rich offer from Spurs with a very tight deadline to give a response. Well, Dave, first question to you really is, will he stay or will he go, Paratici? And then we have some more important questions after that to address.
It's a difficult one to know, but, I would argue.
You're going to put a fiver anywhere.
I think it'll be in Tottenham's best interest to try and keep him here, Jack, once his ban is lifted. And the reason why I say that is because the recruitment under Paratici was complete different to Johan Lang's recruitment. We were able to pull players out of the Serie A and stuff like that. You look at Johan Lang's recruitment, he's gone to some obscure leagues around the world to try and pull players in here. And I don't think it's benefited Tottenham Hotspur under his recruitment under Johan Lang's. Whereas with Paratici, we were starting to head in the right direction. You look at the first transfer window under Postecoglou and where he finished in the league. Look at this summer's transfer window and where he's finished in the league. Night and day in terms of your recruitment. But also, let's not forget that Daniel Levy, before Paratici came in here, was a long-term admirer of Don Paratici. If you don't think people don't forget that, he's a long-term admirer, and if he's admired him for that long, then surely the onus should be on him then to reach out to Paratici and try to get him to sign on and continue on this project, because Paratici made great inroads in this football club. Not only did he get a lot of the young academy players that notoriously in years gone by before that were signing on elsewhere and leaving for free, he got them all to sign on the dotted line. Not only was he recruiting for the academy, young players for the first team as well, but he was also recruiting senior players for the first team to help try and kick on the project and stuff like that, while also putting in the scouting department. And I think the big thing is, he also spoke to Daniel Levy in the way that he needs to be spoken to. In years gone by, Daniel Levy didn't really see the benefits of the academy, whereas Paratici can sit there and say, look, Daniel, you get these guys to sign on the dotted line. If they don't make it for one reason or another, it's an extra 10, 15 million in your transfer kitty that you can top up. So there is benefits to focusing on that. There is benefits to bringing in players for the here and now to go into that first team and stuff like that. I think he spoke to Daniel Levy, whereas Daniel Levy is a trained accountant. He just looks at numbers one side, make sure it's in the green. That's all he wants. Whereas I think Paratici was able to sort of speak to him and show him the different benefits of what he was trying to do in terms of how Daniel Levy could gain out of it going forward and stuff. And I think that's where Johan Lang and to a degree Scott Munn have actually completely failed at this football club. They're sort of just going exactly off what Daniel Levy wants to do rather than actually coming up with innovative ideas and actually fixing the problems inside Tottenham Hotspur, which is what Paratici undertook. So for me, I think if we really want to progress forward, it's imperative we get him back in, because right now, Jack, we're basically saying to a manager, we're going to give you substandard recruitment and we want you to go and compete with Man City, Liverpool, and your Arsenals. But the reasons why they're up there is because their director of footballs ain't signing players that they want to sign or for the long term. They're going to Guardiola. What do you need to help you? They're going to Arteta. What can we sign to help you? When Jurgen Klopp was there, what can we bring in to help you? They trusted their managers. They brought in what they wanted. When they were in charge of the squads, they had full say on who left, who came in. At Tottenham Hotspur, we don't want to operate like that. We want to sign the players and say, you go make up that 75% gap in quality. You be the difference as a manager. And I'm sorry, how many Leicesters have you seen in our lifetime? I've seen one. So it's going
Mm.
forward, that's not the model we should be operating off. Trying to pull off a Leicester, we need to realize, because I think people go, "Oh, that's outdated." No, it's not. Teams that we're trying to compete with are all operating off that, where the managers, have full control over the squads, who's coming in and who's going out. So why shouldn't we? So for me, I do think Paratici needs to come back in because his recruitment gives the manager a better chance to succeed.
I think we'll, ask some further questions on why we think he should be coming back. If I were to make a guess as to the outcome, I'd just say maybe watch this space because with the English aggregates or the English ITKs over the summer when it came to transfer rumors and whatnot, I think they got royally exposed for not really having much of an inkling or much of a clue as to what Spurs were going for. We saw that Johan Lange and Daniel Levy were able to really close up a lot of the leaks and close up a lot of the sort of avenues to where these guys, can get sort of that inside source of some kind, and plenty of the players that we ended up signing over this last summer and even to a degree, I think even this January transfer window, we had no idea until it was like 24 hours, away from basically happening. The person was practically putting on a shirt and then, they figured out that maybe Spurs were making a signing of some kind. So I think we have to sort of maybe just not really, buy into maybe totally, the Matt Laws and whatnot of the world, straight away on this. At the same time, with the Italian ITKs, I can't really claim to say that they're any better. So I think we're just gonna have to watch this space. I'm
Mm.
curious though as to what Paratici is thinking at this moment in time. Daniel Levy, right, brought him into Spurs, gave him a lot of responsibility, gave him a big project to take on, and in our opinion, he did very, very well with it. And also, what we know of is that Daniel Levy has still used him as sort of a guy to lean on, an occasional sort of, kind of, I think, consultancy type of role, some sort of vague gray area there. So does Paratici still feel like, Daniel Levy has his best interests, that Daniel Levy is still going to lean on him, in a good way and not a bad way? I'm curious about that. But with also maybe his ban, what brings him back to Italy? Is it just family reasons? Is it just that he's more comfortable there? The fact that he got, in trouble for all the transfers in the first place at Juventus, not at Tottenham Hotspur. He got banned for his time with Juventus and the black book of transfers that he had there. I'm curious, why maybe he would want to go back to, the country where he did in fact get in trouble in the first place for those naughty transfers of his. And then with AC Milan, the club that he's being linked with, it's an interesting club to take on at the moment of time. They've had a bit of a mixed bag in recent years. They kind of slipped a little bit since firing their old manager, who was able to get them to a Champions League semifinal, but then also was able to win them a Serie A title as well. But I wonder, with Paratici, does he like to take on these really difficult projects, at various clubs? Is he a bit of a guardian angel for teams, where he can go into a dumpster fire and try to fix it? They've had some weird manager issues. Sergio Conceição was brought in after they just fired Fonseca. So they've had two managers this season. And even Conceição is actually under some immense pressure already. He hasn't necessarily had the best of times, since going to AC Milan. I think they've made some good transfers, for the most part. I like a lot of their team. I like a lot of their players, but I am curious as to what is, attracting, Paratici to that AC Milan job at the
Well,
moment in time. But maybe, going to push on to what could be forcing Paratici to think about other clubs, Dave. Could it be Johan Lange pushing him out? Could it be that maybe he feels like the business that he's done with Spurs has been done and he's done the most he can and he wants to take on, a whole different dumpster fire, a whole different project. I'm wondering if it's a bit of Johan Lange sort of feeling like, he's treading on Paratici's, capabilities of making a change to Spurs and making an impact, or could it also be that Paratici just feels like, he had his time at Tottenham Hotspur and he's willing to take on a different project?
look, Paratici is not threatened by Johan Lang by any stretch of the imagination. No, by any stretch of the imagination. He's not even threatened on what Johan Lang can do for this Tottenham team moving it forward. Paratici is the guy who's a well sought after sort of director of football. And the reason why is because he has contacts in the games. He can get big players to sign for your club, and he's just a shrewd businessman, and he works with the owners. People go on about what he done in Italy. He didn't just make that up himself and go rogue underneath the ownership. The ownership wanted him to do that because they wanted the likes of Ronaldo, Chiellini, and people like
Yeah.
that kept at the club and on the books and stuff like that. So it was under their directorship. It's not like he just went rogue and no one knew what he was doing. But when it comes to, Johan Lang, there's a reason why Aston Villa got rid of him and brought in Munchie from Sevilla, right? They matched the recruitment up with the manager because Johan Lang could not bring in the players that someone like Emery required to help kick Aston Villa on. Bring in Munchie, now they're bringing in the likes of Asensio and players like that. Absolutely madness. So it just goes to show actually how poor Johan Lang's recruitment has been at Villa since they brought in a new guy, and at Tottenham when we've had Paratici before. It shows that he is not good enough for this job. But the only reason why I think Paratici, Jack, will sort of move on somewhere else is if he feels disrespected by Tottenham.
Yeah,
Or
that's
Tottenham haven't made an approach. And what I mean by disrespected is if he's telling Daniel Levy, look, you need to do this, and with the experience that he's had in the game, building clubs and stuff like that, he feels like he should be listened to. And if the ownership doesn't want to listen to him and just wants to go and do his thing, well, then why would Paratici, continue on in that role? What's the point? You brought him here for all his expertise. You don't want to listen to him. Or if the club haven't approached him to kick on and Daniel Levy does want to go along the route with Scott Munn and Johan Lang, then that's why Paratici moves on. But when he was here, it looked like he was enjoying what he was doing. He was very heavily involved in around match day, in and around on the bench.
Yeah.
And actually what he did do is, to a certain degree, is keep players on notice because he could see their demeanor in and around, what they're doing in and around game day, in and around the training and everything else. Are they the right person for this club in terms of mentality and all that sort of thing? He weeded a lot of that out. And you need someone like that around because what it does do, puts people on notice. All of a sudden, if the big bad boss is around, all of a sudden you're on your best behavior, right? So for me, I think there's a lot of benefits of bringing Paratici back in here. If we really want to kick on as a football club, we need someone like him who can bring in your Romeros, your Bentacors, your Kulizevskis, players like that. Not someone like Johan Lang who has to go out to the K-League and panic buy because he can't get any other player in here. He can't even get into a room to speak to the owners or the players of, the players that we need to try and attract here. He can't even get into the room with them. Paratici in the room with them. Massive difference.
I'm wondering, I agree with you. I don't think he's probably threatened by someone like Johan Lange, but I wonder if he's feeling, in a way, a bit, I don't know, betrayed might be a strong word, right? But I wonder if he is feeling like, listen, I've done great work, for you guys at Spurs. And if Daniel Levy is maybe balancing who he's listening to between Johan Lange and Paratici, I wonder if Paratici just doesn't really care for that and is, would rather just take on a job where he is given, kind of all the eyes and all the ears, around the football club and is being given all the responsibility. Whereas if he comes back to Spurs and it's a bit of a hybrid situation between Johan Lange and him, does that really, interest him? Does that really attract him, to stay at Spurs? And that's what I wonder if what's going on here with him. And, Dave, I was going to ask you, sounds like you were going to touch on something else there, but I was also going to ask you, maybe as one of the final questions is, we've been accused of being the Paratici twins, his PR team. We've been accused of overly praising Paratici. I even saw that in some of the Twitter replies to ourselves, saying that we should bring him back and that we should try to bring him to the football club to, bring us in those experienced players that you're talking about, because that's what you just mentioned there, right? What we need right now this upcoming summer is more experience and proven players being brought back into Spurs. And that's where Paratici, I think, can excel more than someone like Johan Lange has. Johan Lange is showing that he does tend to rely on and tends to lean on more of the younger potential type of signings, especially maybe in and around the homegrown market. But Paratici's a guy that can bring in more of a big kahuna from a big club and try to negotiate it still under Daniel Levy budgets and under Daniel Levy restrictions. So I personally would like to bring him back, but some people say that we overly praise him. So what do you make of that?
Yeah, I would argue, at the time when we were coming out saying, no, this guy's recruitment is better than other people, I think at the time, a lot of people just had a lot of distrust in terms of a lot of Tottenham's recruitment. But what I will say is since then, I've had, some people who were pulling us out, criticising us over it, has come back to me and said, you know what, we need Paratici back. And I've said to them, I don't want to hear it. I do not want to hear it.
Well, some said in the Twitter replies like, "Oh, he's only brought in Bentancur, Kulusevski, Romero," which I think is harsh. He basically fixed the academy, he
Van de
basically
Ven,
fixed the data
Madison.
scouting model, brought in Vicario, brought in Madison, brought in Vuskovic, one of the very talented players through the door for our academy. I think people have missed out. Even Pop Matasar, who I still really rate, even though I don't think he's under maybe the most praise from Spurs fans. I think people have been quite harsh to just put him down for Bentancur, Kulusevski, Romero, because they kind of said, oh, for every Romero, he's signed a Brian Hill, or for every Bentancur, he's signed an Emerson Royale. And I find that to be actually quite harsh, really, at the end of the day, especially compared to the guys that we've had in the past.
Well, you look at the squad that, Postecoglou uses, or the starting 11. Bar Son, who's been here long before, bar Dominic Solanke, a lot of players that play or that we've been waiting on to return have been Paratici signings. A lot of the ones that have come in and we've been asking to kick us on have been other signings that other people have made that haven't been quite good. Yeah, Gray and Bergvall have been good, but outside of that, a lot of the Johan Lang signings have been bang average and really haven't made the impact on Tottenham Hotspur that, we needed these signings to make. Last January with Werner and Dragusin, to the summer, to the January just gone. A lot of the signings we've made, none of them have really impacted the first team. We've been relying largely on this season on all Paratici's injured players to come back. So that says everything that we need to know, that Johan Lang has failed and that we do need to bring Paratici back in to bring in some of these more experienced players to kick on. What's Postecoglou been screaming out for this season? Leadership, experience. He's been saying it even heading into the January transfer window, and then we go and get Kidsky and Matisse style. It's absolutely unbelievable. And I don't think it's a case that they're ignoring Postecoglou. I just think it's a case Johan Lang can't get in the room with the type of players that we need, to be quite frank with you. But when it comes to Paratici, I do think, given hindsight, a lot of the people that maybe criticised them or criticised us for praising them are of the thinking that they want him back. So I believe, our job and our work is done maybe there, Jack, on that, and maybe we can just move on.
Okay. Well, everybody, let us know what you think. What's going to happen, right? That's kind of the first question. Is he going to go back to Italy? Is he going to come back to Tottenham Hotspur? Let us know in the comments, please, on that. And let us know, maybe your thoughts on that final question there, because we have definitely been made fun of before for our overly praised, if it was phrased that way, for Paratici. But I would love to have him back. So let us know if you would like to have him back. Another great football related video by us. If you want to become a member, consider doing that as well. Plenty of good content coming out. And also as well, Fan Show will be back on Monday, back to regular business, back to the regular schedule. Tried our best to sort of fill out the weeks, during this international break. And we're looking forward to getting back to regular business. So we'll see you all on Monday, and there will be some more recordings coming out as well. And also join us over on Big Up this weekend as well, if there's going to be a watch along for some of the FA Cup games that are going to be happening. We'll see you later, everybody. Come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.